First, we today in our side we argue that super teams, those allied stars studied assemblies in sports business and even tech do more harm than good. Not just because of occasional failures, but because of the mechanism by what we provide. So our mechanism will undermine fairness, stifle competition, and erode long-term health of the ecosystems they dominate. So first. So first, killing competition at its roots. So super teams are built on one core strategy, hoarding the best talent in sports. This means a handful of wealthy clubs buying up top players until no teams can compete. In business, it means tech giants poaching the best engineers and researchers, leaving smaller firms with no chance to innovate. So when the best talent is concentrated in one place, it eliminates the competitive balance that makes leagues and markets thrive. Fans stop watching low-sided sports matches, and consumers lose out on the new products and ideas smaller, diverse teams would create. For example, for the NBA's, the big three super teams didn't just win championships. Instead, they made regular season feel irrelevant for years, as only two to three teams had a realistic shot at the title. So viewership dropped, and smaller markets lost revenue because their teams couldn't attract talent or fans. And also in a business, when Google or media hold AI researchers, startups can compete to develop breakthroughs, slowing down progress for everyone. Talent hoarding doesn't just win, it starves the entire system. Moving on, they're creating unfair advantage. Super teams don't just attract talent; they attract disproportionate resources, creating a feedback loop that makes them even more dominant. In sports, this means richer clubs can afford higher salaries, better facilities, and more scouts, so they keep finding the next generation of stars. In business, it means super teams secure more funding, partnerships, and media attention, pushing smaller players into margins. So resources stop flowing to where they could create the most value and instead pile up where their least need is. So a mid-tier sport teams might have a great young player, but a super team will outbid them, turning a promising underdog into a feeder club. In tech, where when a super team like OpenAI gets billions in funding, it crowds out smaller AI labs that might be working on more ethical applications. So this leads to a winner takes all market where one company sets the agenda and the diversity of that is lost. So the result isn't just unfair, it's inefficient. We'd end up with fewer choices, less innovation, and a system where success depends on who you're connected, not on how good your ideas are. And it widens the gap, it widens the entire the social gap. And then moving on to diminishing meaning and storytelling. One of the most underappreciated harms of super teams is how they erode the emotional and cultural value of competition. Sports and business thrive on stories of underdogs, teamwork, and long-term growth narrative that super teams destroy by making success look easy and inevitable. When a super team wins, it's not a story of hard work or chemistry. It's a story of money and star power. Fans don't feel inspired, they feel cynical. Like, for example, the Super Bowl, where the star-studded Buccaneers won easily, was one of the least watched in history because viewers knew that the outcome was a foregone conclusion. In business, when a over team like the Walt Disney Company buys up every major franchise, it reduces the diversity of stories we get to see. Independent studios can't compete, so we're left with endless sequels and spin-offs instead of fresh original content. So over time, this erodes the reason we care about these activities in the first place. If every championship or market leader is predetermined, what's the point of watching, supporting, or innovating? Super teams don't just win, they suck the life out of the game. Lastly, super teams are less resilient than the team. So ironically, the very things that make super teams dominant also make them fragile. When you build a team around a few stars, you became dependent on their health, egos, and availability. If one star gets injured or leaves, the entire system collapses. Like the like in sports, the Golden Gate Warriors, the last Kevin Durant into injury, their entire dynasty ended overnight. They went on from championships to missing the playoffs in one season, prove that super teams are built on a house of cards, not sustainable teamwork. So this fragility don't just hurt the super team, it destabilizes the entire ecosystem. When a sport teams collapse, fans lose interest. When a business super team fails, investors pull back, hurting smaller companies also. So our solution is a three-tiered system to break super team dominance. So first, in sports, we can enforce a progressive luxury tax, a talent dispersal draft for teams win consecutive championships. For example, if a team wins two plus titles in a row, they must release 1 to 2 star players to draft pool for a smaller market teams to sign at a capable salary. This will prevent like history like the NBA's Big Three cycle and restore competitive balance. And also create a league-wide revenue like sharing like 30% of the TV or sponsorship money from top team is distributed into smaller market clubs. This would let mid-tier teams afford better facilities, scouts, and player development programs so that they can grow their own talent instead of losing it to super teams. And also, in business, we can launch a diversity of innovations funded by fines from super teams that violate anti-holding rules. The fund would give grants to startups working on ethical technologies that super teams ignore. This would end the winner takes all cycle and ensure progress happens everyone, not just in Silicon Valley. So. We're not arguing that super teams never do good, but they sometimes win championships or create breakouts through products. So from our solutions, we can solve the problem. So please vote for us. Thank you.
Now, so government has a burden to prove how their side will succeed in both financial and people's perspective, and they also need to prove what they're going to do as their alternative. So I'm getting to my roadmap. In my speech, I will give two main points of our side, and if I have time, maybe I will do rebuttal for the government team. So let's just get into the first point about a super team drive global engagement and grow the sport audience. When the elite players join forces, their combined star power creates global media buzz and attract casual fans who might not follow the sport otherwise. This wider audience increase revenue for leagues, sponsors, and broadcasters, which can then be reinvested to support grassroots development. We also want to argue that why when people like it is the best, because the magnitude of this impact is wide. Also, people want to see as financially supporting the teams, which without people support stars are nothing. And there are two impact of this point. First is about super teams creates iconic moments and lasting cultural legacy. The clash of super teams produce historical matches and unforgettable plays that become a part of sports folklore. These moments transcend the sports, creating shared cultural memories that binds fans together across generations. And second impact is about super team offer players a pathway to achieve historical greatness. For elite athletes, joining a super team often provides the best chance to win major trophies and break records, which are central to their legacy. This aligns with the core competitive spirit of sports, where athletes strive to reach the pinnacle of their disciplines. And that's no thank you. That's my first point. And the second point is about super team rise the competitive bar and drive a tactical innovation. The concentration of talent forces other teams to adapt, innovate, and develop new strategies to compete. This skills and tactics elevates the overall quality of play across the entire league. And there are the impact of this points is that super team promotes diversity and global talent mobility by attracting stars from different countries and leagues. Super teams break down geographical barriers and showcase global talent. This culture exchange and inspire young players worldwide to pursue professional careers, knowing they can reach the highest level of regardless of their background. And okay, I still have time, so I will provide a new point for our side as about super team provide financial stability and growth for smaller clubs. The increased revenue generated by super teams is often distributed through like revenue sharing models. Small, no, thank you. Smaller clubs also benefits from selling players to super teams, receiving transfers fees that allow teams to invest in young academies. So, because of these reasons, please vote for our side. Proud propose.
So firstly, a clarification. According to the motion, we do not have the burden to prove our policy on how we are going to interact with and how we're going to make a policy ensuring that star teams there won't be super teams because the motion states that we believe that it has done more harm than good. So we do not have the burden to prove this. But opponents, if you really need us to give you a solution to this, let's say the NBA already has a solution to this. I but the for I if I'm not wrong, the NBA drafting is every single team only gets a certain amount of drafts per season, which therefore allows a team not to get too many MVP players in each season. If I'm not wrong, and now moving on. So our opponent's main contention throughout the entire speech was rise of innovation and how it allows teams to figure out more strategy and solutions on how and encourage their competitive spirits, which we believe both points do not stand in our debate today. Because firstly, let's take another example from the NBA because I watch basketball. So let's say the All-Stars team, right? It's a team filled with all of the best players in America. Do you think do you think it will make other teams more competitive if if let's say the Lakers without the people that were playing the All-Stars. Do you think the Lakers would be competitive if they have to go against the All-Stars team? Of course not, because they're gonna be against the best players throughout the entire nation. There's no chance that they're gonna be able to win, and maybe they won't, and maybe they won't even be able to score over 50 points. So this does not encourage this team to be more competitive, and also across different sports. If one single team is filled with the best players in the entire nation, it's not gonna make the opponent team more competitive. It's just gonna make them lose their competitive spirit because they know for a fact that they're not gonna be able to win, right? All right, and now moving on now to our second point of rise of innovation. So I think what they mean by rise of innovation is pointing to like specialized sports that allow you to use your innovation in their sports, which is already a niche category. And then saying that innovation it encourages innovation, we believe it's like the same logic point as a competitive spirit. If you know that there's absolutely no chance that you're gonna win, is which is pretty much which is well, yes, maybe your team is gonna be able to win, but that's like 1 out of 100%. If you're gonna be going against the best teams in the entire world, the best players in the entire world, the best players in the entire nation. So just gonna make them, furthermore, make them lose their spirit, make them not want to compete as hard as they could because they feel like they're gonna lose no matter what. And now adding on to my prime minister's speech. So firstly, it's the point on fairness. If it although it's like not completely against it's not against sportsmanship that to have the best players in your team, but it's just not fair, especially in a league where, for example, the NBA. It's not going to be fair if one team has all of the best players throughout the entire world. As what are the other teams going to do? Like if one team has the power and the resources to draft every single player that they want, then the other teams it's not going to be fair for the other teams. The other teams might not have enough resources to draft all the players that they want. They might not have the infrastructure to train their players like how other places can, and which isn't attracting these players, which therefore it's unfair at to some point. And also it gives these teams it also gives the it also gives the super team pressure because the pressure's on them to win because everybody give their reputation throughout across the entire world is you are the best team. You're supposed to win. If you don't win, then you shouldn't be considered the super team. Well, this already gives the start super team a lot of pressure, especially in some sports, for example, golf or F1. Like the win is not completely dependent on the player. It's also dependent on the weather, the terrain, and like it's dependent on so many other aspects other than just the player. So giving all of these players this pressure for them to win because they're the super team isn't fair. And now moving on to views or the finance aspect of this, when we talk about super teams, it's mostly on a league that is supposed to make money. For example, golf, the PGA, for example, basketball, the NBA. They're a league that's point is to generate revenue so that they can continue on this year by year. If one team is if all the good players that if all the exciting players to watch is all in one team, then the other teams aren't gonna get as much views. And well, neither is the team that's playing because if everybody knows that this team is gonna win because they're the strongest, then nobody's gonna want to come watch because it's not even gonna be exciting. It's not like there's gonna be amazing plays that play for example, players are gonna be forced to go in for a difficult mid-range. Players are gonna be forced to take a half-court shot because of the shot clock. None of these are gonna happen because the other team's gonna be winning by a lot. So there's no excitement, which therefore causes nobody wanting to watch this. If nobody's gonna watch the live stream, nobody's gonna buy tickets to watch live, and none of these are gonna happen, then they're not then these leagues or these companies, they're not gonna be able to generate revenue to support their future plays. If they're gonna be losing money every single year because no one wants to come watch, then at the end they're just not gonna be hosting games anymore. And all of these professional leagues, they're just not gonna be a thing. The NBA is not gonna be a thing because they can't make money off of these. Neither is going to be the other leagues in other sports, which is why we believe super teams have done more harm than good. Therefore, we should win today's debate.
Now, firstly, a little rebuttal and then rebuttal to the second speaker on Pong's side. So, firstly, in their side speech, so basically, firstly, they say about bad for very small teams, right? They say about they all focus on superstars. And so, also mentioned in our second speech, when they say about there is unfairness, when they say about like there is they can't win, and when they say about all those things, they are not supposed to win, right? So we want to say that when actually you can't blame. Firstly, the first rebuttal is that you can't all blame super teams. So if your team is actually bad, you need to commit it. But when superstars, when they are in the individual, so they were already the focus. So when they go into a team, so there's not like too much of an impact, right? So that's what we are trying to tell you about. And also when those superstars, you need to think how superstars become superstars. They still became when they are actually not strong, and you are also not strong. Then why can't you become them, right? So that's actually what you need to think about yourselves, right? So secondly, we think that even if it's harming the small teams, but this kind of unique kind of filming is that only you are you're the focus right now. The super teams are our focus, and then we pick casual teams here and to attract more viewers. It is not a long-term plan, as we actually clarify that we only want to attract more people into this field. For example, NBA and media too, right? So super teams are not even supposed to win, but it's like super teams are actually supposed to win, and actually just to use this to attract more fans. So that's exactly why that we are trying to use those kind of super teams, right? It's not a short-term plan. And so what our side looks like is that we're trying to do when there's a loads of boring competitions in those kind of two average teams and they're fighting forever, we actually give them a sweetener that is actually letting them to get a super team into us and like like for example once in for example 10 years and things like that, right? So just to not let people bored and also attract new fans, right? But when people have fun with this match, they will quickly change into normal match. And so that's what we claim what our side looks like. So opposite side basically misunderstands all of what our side is like, right. So basically we also want to say so the first rebuttal is that in the status quo we think that those stuff already happened, but actually those kind of like super teams already happened, but things never turned bad. And we also want to say instead it only turned better. So when it never turned bad, so our opponent just simply cannot argue when it's more harm than good. So this is ridiculous, right? So actually when status quo already done a better job, we think that that's how we can win. Secondly, we want to answer what want to say. They want to say about unstable. But when they say unstable, this is also ridiculous because we clashed on them. We already said in our constructed speech, but they never rebut directly is that super teams provide the financial stability and growth for the smaller clubs and the media. Because super teams they attract fans, they attract money, and a lot of fans invest into those kind of live streams and things like that. What's that for? It's that not only for the super teams, even if the super teams are earning, but also the media is earning money. The small teams are also earning money. It provides financial stability. If there is super teams, we think that people would have a really stable stay in this kind of things because they are already like, for example, if it's like once in 10 years, they already are thinking that I want to see the next super team show in the next 10 years, right? Then actually they are stable and they will stay here forever. And they will not only enjoy themselves and in those kind of like normal matches, but also they will be more attracted and even invite more friends into the into this kind of media when this like in the like the super team show. Also, we want to clarify there is actually a thing that is triggering those. That is echo chambers. When there is a media, social media, and those kind of group chats that are those kind of echo chambers that are happening, those things, those information about super teams and people who like it will spread this kind of news and spread the information. And because they're so strong, everybody loves them. Everybody loves those kind of like strong kick and strong feeling of they just gets every team. They just simply defeated them so easily. And that's really fun to see, right? That's what we are trying to provide for those viewers. And that's how we just want them to win. It's not like the fairness does not even mean anything right now. But fairness only means if there is no super teams, those matches that don't have super teams. But if there is a super team match, then we are going to attract more people. And the magnitude of its impact is so high, right? We also so that's why our side is also stable, right? So when they never directly rebutted our points, I think that there will be more clashes. Will be say in our in like third speech. But now moving on to rebuttal to and the second speaker, right? When they say that we can't win, ask again. We aren't supposed to win, right? We want to attract more people. So those small teams they just get lose, but so in the long term they still get money. Those small teams they lose at present, but those kind of viewers they donate money and they invest in those kind of NBA and things like that, and then the money will flow into the small teams. So how would that small teams won't be benefited? Because they choose those kind of jobs. They choose what they like, not only for entertainment and about like for example, is this their interest when they go into sports, when they want to be an like athletes, they not only to choose for that, but they also want to earn money, and then we give them right when they lack of money, when they lack of stability, we give them right. Our side is actually unique on this point because our side attracts viewers, but opponent side never did. With our side, opponent side gives solutions. That's why actually the reason like we want them to give a solution, and they did right. So
although they fulfill that burden, I still want to say that in their speech, they never are supposed to win. And their side is never supposed to attract much more viewers. And actually, our side turns those kind of potential that can attract more viewers more in the social media and things like that, and then get those kind of more triggers like those things that actually helps them to attract more viewers. When they say about unfairness, we already said. So why is NBA things like for example, do you think that the NBA is playing competitive sports? It's not, right? And so why is that there where there is, right? So we want to say that it's not competitive sports, then this is not even important, right? So then we want to say even if it's casual matches, unfairness is not that important. And I think that the way to defeat unfairness is only a way, is only like to train yourself and to become better, and that leads to competitiveness, right? So that is actually a very natural logic. How to break barriers, how to break super teams, how to win in those kind of harsh environments, and how to be memorized for forever if you just beat the super team. How to do that? The only chance is to learn well, play well, and learn more, right? And practice more, right? But that's the only chance to break those barriers. That's why we encourage them to lead to our second impact, right? To be honest, as an athlete, when you are a true athlete, we think, oh yeah. So, last sentence, just when you encounter stronger opponents, your fighting spirit only becomes stronger. Thank you. That's all.
Yeah. Starting my whip speech, I would first like to redefine sports as the official definition. Sports is a game played with above rules and for supporters, and that supporters comes from the game. Our opponents in today's debate attempts to reframe this sports into a game where people attempt to do the impossible, where people are placed against the best players within a nation, within the entire sports field. Judge, how could this ever be possible? How could normal people, normal teams, normal firms ever win against all the combined might, the best of the best within any type of field? Judge, what our opponents claim today is simply impossible to happen within today's spectrum or any society. So, Judge, in this whip speech, I would first like to weigh and compare the clashes presented in this debate, and then go on to make an evaluation to most of the arguments to end my speech. Yes? Yifang, I
Yeah,
think you had a PI.
I'll get a PI. So why would we actually want them to win if we can like actually simply just attract more viewers and not let them win?
Judge, this is exactly where our opponents' claims are false. You see, Judge, our opponents simply believe in a reality that is far from today, where viewers want to look at a game that has a defined result, and where viewers get to watch something that, while is not entertaining at all. You see, Judge, the basic sports requires a conflict and an entertaining game to actually function. The industry itself is built on entertainment for people. The excitement, the irony, the situational irony, where a weaker team overcomes a little stronger team, not when a weaker team competes with God knows who. You know what? You know what? Let's make a comparison. This is basically saying that a person should fight 100 people. Judge, that is simply unequitable. That is simply not going to attract any sort of audience because the results are already defined by itself. Next, continuing to my speech. But first clash we spotted within today's debate is on the monopolistic cycle that sports super teams brings. Our opponents in their second speech believes that while super teams should win and other teams should always lose, Judge, we tell you that this is a very, well, fueled claim, seeing that with smaller teams and smaller firms, these should actually have a chance within sports in order to have the field to actually generate any revenue. In addition, as my first speaker has claimed, Using super teams would especially affect small term firms, seeing that all the talent is attracted away from these firms and causes inefficiency in both innovation and limiting the market, causing a loss in the possible increase of both profit for these small teams and also the entertainment of basically the entire industry with its audience. Our opponents claimed that while the monopolistic cycle can actually be good, seeing that adolescents can join super teams to train. However, Judge, I would like you to reconsider the implications of this argument. You see, Judge, our opponents believe that scouts from these super teams would ignore the teams that have some potential and instead look at adolescents for the talent. Judge, we tell you this is simply not going to happen in today's debate because in today's status quo, well, scouts are only going to look at the people that can potentially give benefits and defined benefits towards their teams. Thereby, no scouts would actually go to adolescents who do not have even the basic skills required for these super teams, thereby proving their claim false. Again, our opponents also claimed that this monopolistic cycle allows for development of strategies for weaker teams. However, Judge, they face a significant error here. A rabbit simply does not try to fight the lion. The lion would inevitably kill the rabbit for food, no matter what strategy the rabbit attempts to do. It is incorrect to think that weaker teams are simply able to use strategy against better teams, seeing that if teams needed to play against the strongest player of the entire sport, development of strategy would basically not matter anymore. And in total, Judge, what matters the most in today's debate is that super teams destroy the spirit of sports itself. As my first speaker claims, super teams make the outcomes highly predictable for sport teams, which erodes the interest of fans and kills the entire sport with it. While the con side believes that super teams can produce memorable games, we tell you that this again is simply incorrect. As my second speaker stated in his rebuttals, the All-Stars of NBA, in case our opponents didn't know, is a show where super teams get made and put against each other. If an all Seeing this, the All-Stars is indeed a memorable game. However, we tell you today that there is only around 3 teams within the All-Stars, meaning that the economy generated by these All-Star games are actually not going to go into the other firms and other teams, thereby decreasing the overall economy and increasing inefficiency with the sport. In addition to this, our opponents claim that stronger teams should be intentionally pitted against weaker teams um to improve the audience entertainment levels. However, this would be the same thing as placing all-star teams against normal teams. Judge, this is not applicable in today's society and would only kill the team. Seeing that with super teams, again with super teams, the there is basically no suspense, no nothing, no tension, and basically there is nothing that audience want to see within a sports team that within a super team versus weaker team game, and thereby our opponents are simply destroying this game, but with supporting super teams, and thereby super teams should. In our side, we believe that super teams have done more harm than good to all sports. Thank you.
So in my speech, I'll basically just give some rebuttal to our opponents and summarize the main clash of this debate and just explain some of the points we have. So the first thing is that we attract people of our game, attract people, attract population, attract popularity because of the process of the match, the skills that the superstars, the super team, they are showing, not just the result of the game. Who comes to games just to see the results, right? And and also and also the our opponents explain how super teams is destroying the spirit the spirit of these games. However, we say no because the whole spirit of game is to challenge something that is much more powerful than you and beat it and become the next one of the best, right? So if the players on the smaller teams are feeling unfair, then they may as well improve their skills until they become one of the one of the better get into the super team. And if they're feeling this is unsafe, and also our
POI.
opponents use use multiple like examples about how like one these were like 1% vs 100%, and how like lions versus rabbits. No, we say that these examples are all flawed and cannot be compared to with what the motion that we're dealing here now. We what we are showing you here is that human versus human, not lions versus rabbits. That example is clearly flawed because
POI.
compared to your opponents in this those kind of matches, you all got two hands and two legs, and you didn't really lack anything except skills. Therefore, I say that all the examples that our opponents propose are clearly flawed and cannot be used to prove any of their points. And also, they explain how these kind of matches will put pressure, will be not fair for the small teams, and will put pressure on on the super team because they're not supposed to lose. However, we say they're not true. I've already explained why it is fair for the small teams. Now I also say that although they might like exert pressure upon the bigger teams, that is not a bad thing. Bad thing because sometimes with pressure, people can perform better and perform like a lot better than they were with no pressure or yes. And also, and now I'm going to use an example to prove why this kind of matches will not destroy the game as our opponents proposed. So let's say say of boxing, like when like Tyson's on stage, like it is almost impossible to beat them. So why is people still coming to Tyson's matches to see him box, and why is it still other players trying to challenge Tyson to beat him? Of course they want to prove themselves by beating Tyson that they are very good, and also this works as well in today's in today's motion. You can compare Tyson
POI.
to be the super team and the normal players as being the smaller team. No, in today's motion. And why is that? Normally there is more people coming to see Tyson's matches than of people coming to see a normal boxer versus another boxer rather than normal boxer versus Tyson. That's because they want to see Tyson box. They want to see Tyson destroy their enemy. This works as well in this scenario. Except people also people also want to see the superstars perform their skills and to show and let the superstars show how they are different from normal players.
POI.
And it's the spirit of the game. Therefore, our opponents clearly do not stand. No, and now I'll just summarize the main clash of this debate. So firstly is of obviously who can produce more revenue for the company and for the teams. Of course, we clearly win at this clash because I've already explained there will be more people coming to see the superstar versus normal team matches with my example. I already explained very clearly about this, and so of course we'll produce more revenue, more money for the company and for the teams, and also and yes, and obviously the second class is whether or not which side is fair, which that is more fair. Our opponents cannot prove how we fail at this class, because obviously the whole meaning of sports, of games, is to compare the ability of the players. So there was nothing unfair about this, because we do not use drugs on the players, and we do not do stuff that is outside of letting player compete player, right? So therefore we win on this clash as well, and also we win because we can look at the smaller teams, and while the provinces cannot, while our opponents cannot, because we can use we can let them competing with the super teams to gain them popularity. If therefore proud to oppose. Yes. Thank you.
They say that in their speech, that when the result is already defined, how would you attract people? But this is very simple, Judge. We want to say that we attract people because in the process of the match, their skills are very intriguing, right? And that's how superstars are superstars. Imagine that. So, for example, superstars are actually facing a really strong team is actually facing a bad team. But actually, when this not super teams, people also already know the result. But why when these things are constantly happening, why would actually a lot of people watch matches? That's because that those skills actually show their talent and show very cool strengths that is actually very intriguing with people. How no matter if they win or not, when the skills are already okay, even if the losing side have really good skills, they can also be praised for days, right? We still think that those things are the matter what matter most, and those things, and mainly we want to focus this debate on about impacts. When our opponent side is always telling us about like strawman judge, we want to tell you about how impact is important, right? But judge, let us use like last time about our team to explain the clashes one more time. Firstly, small teams. Small teams being argued so many times. I think our opponent side basically can't argue more about this because we already ended this about small teams discussion, right? Because small teams they already they're already are bad, and when they face superstars, they are determined. But what is most important is that the impact it can bring, is that the money they can earn, and those kind of viewers that they can attract, and also the skills that they present, right? And that's what we already explained. So this is not even important. When opponents that first they talk about it, it is already a strawman judge. Just please be clear about that. Secondly, stability. I think our opponents dropped this clash, but we already says how superpowers provides financial stability and growth for smaller clubs. We think that the increased revenue generated by superpowers via, for example, TV deals, sponsorships, and merchandise are often distributed through like those kind of league revenue sharing models, right? The smaller clubs also benefit from selling star players to super teams and receiving transfer fees that allow them to invest in youth academies and squad depths, and leading to even more like, for example, charity and things like that, right? They donate players to super teams. That's how super team is already that's how super teams is actually appearing. That's the reason why. So judge, please for our side, because we claim the stability right here, right? We are also want to say about fans and engagements, but the engagements our opponent side never talk and not anything about this, right? We also lastly want to say in our side speech we want to already say about impact about historical greatness, but I think our opponent side dropped this. We think that's still very important because when there is historical greatness, those not only economy is stable, but also the econ can come in the long-term view. So just I think that for feasibility, our side of our opponent side is not stable, not feasible, because when they claim about unstable, all their speech is actually not like proving about it. And when they say about it's bad for small teams, they never think about why they actually have an incentive to compete with those kind of superpowers, because they want to like show their strengths too. When those kind of super teams they are showing their strengths, this is their chance. When they defeat the when they like probably have a match against those kind of super teams, they there are like the chance for them to show their strength when a lot of people is watching. That's how they actually makes their impact much more bigger. And actually, that's how is those kind of small teams even afraid of those kind of big teams and super teams, right? We don't think that is happening. Thus, opponent side has really low likelihood. Think that's all.
So first, we would like to mention and clarify that a lot of the rebuttals and claims that our opponents has made, first of all, they're irrelevant to the topic, irrelevant to our counter argument, and a lot of the rebuttals that they tackle has nothing to do with what we've claimed. Yeah, so please keep that in mind. And moving on, so I'll summarize this debate by clashes. So first, do super teams grow the league or do they scare investors away from small markets? So the opposition claims that super teams boost league revenue and attract fans, but we say that super teams make small markets profitable. So investors pull their money and the entire league suffers. Here's the reality. Investors don't put the money into teams that can't compete. When the NBA's big three teams hoarded stars, small market teams like Charlotte Hornets or Sacramento Kings couldn't win. We couldn't sell tickets and couldn't attract sponsors. Investors saw no return on their investment, so they pulled out. The Hornets were told twice in a decade, and the Kings nearly relocated because of dwindling investor confidence. The opposition's league growth is just big market super teams getting richer, while smart markets get abandoned. Moving on to Clash 2. Are super teams exciting or do they make competitions so predictable that investors and fans check out? The opposition argues that fans love star-studded teams, so super teams drive engagement. But we say predictable super team dominance skills fan interest, and when fans leave, the investors follows them. The opposition studies viral super team moments but they ignore the data. The true. So for example, during the Warriors dynasty, the NBA regular season viewership dropped because the fans knew that only 2 to 3 teams had a shot at the title. When fans stopped watching, sponsors cut ties, sales plummet, and investors lose faith. For example, the New Orleans Pelicans struggled to attract investors for years after losing Anthony Davis to the Lakers because fans had no hope of contention. So investors don't fund teams that no one watches, and the opposition side's excitement is short-term hype, but investor confidence is long-term. So we win this clash because sport depend on fans believing their team can win, and sport teams destroy that belief, driving both fans and investors away. And also, do super team honor the game or do they turn sport into a championship contest that erodes investor trust? Investors want a level playing field that they fund teams to build through draft, develop young talent, and compete fairly. But super team bypass that process by paying top free agents with unlimited budgets. So the opposition's pinnacle is a fraud. It's not about teamwork or grift. It's about who has the deepest pockets. Investors don't want to pour money into a rich game. We win this clash because investors trust dependent on fairness, and super teams destroy that fairness. Final weighing. All the 3 clashes actually lead to the same critical harm. So super teams drive investors away from small market teams, and without those investors, league collapse. The opposition's case ignored the backbone of every sport league. A small market that create parity, grow fan bases, and keep competition alive. So when investors pull out, those teams can develop talent, can attract fans, and can contribute to the league's health. So our solution is progressive luxury taxes, revenue sharing, and talent disposal fixes this, and it gives the investors confidence that small teams can compete so that they keep their money in the league, so sports can survive without investors. So therefore, please, and investors survive without fairness. So therefore, please vote for our solution. Thank you.